we are not examining a physical affliction. We are tracing the anatomy of a psychological suicide. If you are seeking immediate comfort, an escape from the friction of reality, or an academic lecture to intellectualize your stagnation, you are in the wrong place. This exploration concerns a profound, quiet death, the deliberate execution of the identity you currently hold. Consider the serpent. As it grows, its skin becomes a rigid tomb. It hardens, cracks, and constricts, suffocating the very life it was meant to shield. If the serpent wishes to survive, it has no choice. It must find a jagged rock, press its snout against the stone, and violently tear open its own casing. It scrapes against the earth, enduring agonizing friction, leaving its old, tattered self behind in the dirt. For a brief window, the serpent is entirely raw. It is highly vulnerable, fragile, and exposed to every predator in the valley. But it is new. It is unburdened. You are that serpent. Yet, you refuse to shed. You continue to drag around a dead, calcified identity that you outgrew a decade ago. You wonder why you feel suffocated. You wonder why you feel trapped in a continuous loop of anxiety, hesitation, and invisible glass ceilings. You are desperately guarding a ghost. You are fighting to remain the person you used to be, misinterpreting that preservation as loyalty to yourself. Ancient cultures possessed an acute understanding of this internal technology. The shamans of the Americas, the Stoics of Rome, and the samurai of feudal Japan all practiced distinct forms of psychological self-termination. They understood that until you willingly bury who you are today, you can never become who you need to be tomorrow. Today, we are going to bury your ego. We are going to strip away the calcified layers of your identity. It will provoke discomfort. It will trigger a deep, biological resistance within you. But on the other side of that psychological death lies the precise life you suspect you are capable of living, currently blocked by the parasite in the mirror. What is this entity we call the ego? In modern colloquial speech, we treat ego as mere arrogance or vanity. We say someone has a big ego when they boast or demand attention. But in the architecture of human psychology, the ego is far more insidious. The ego is a narrative. It is a highly elaborate, fictional construct you built during childhood and adolescence to survive the world. It is the mental avatar you forged to secure validation, protect yourself from rejection, and predict your environment. It is the inner voice that continuously tells you who you are, what you are capable of, and what your limitations must be. It scriptwrites your reality, whispering statements like, "I am a naturally anxious person. I am bad at math. I am an entrepreneur," or "I am a victim of my past events." None of these statements are absolute, biological facts. They are entirely internal contracts. They are the armor you put on to navigate the social battlefields of your youth. The foundational trap occurs when the player completely forgets they are playing a character. You have spent so many years wearing the mask that you now believe your true face is the porcelain. Because you believe you are the mask, you deploy 100% of your daily psychological energy to protect it from the slightest scratch. Consider a corporate executive who bases his entire self-worth on his title, his pristine corner office, and his flawless track record of strategic decisions. One afternoon, a junior analyst points out a massive, undeniable error in the executive's quarterly numbers during a public board meeting. Objectively, it is just a data correction, but watch the executive's physiological response. His face flushes. His chest tightens. His heart rate spikes as if a physical weapon were drawn against him. He doesn't just correct the numbers, he launches into an aggressive, defensive counterattack to discredit the analyst. Why does a correction of data produce the same biological response as a physical assault? Because to his ego, the analyst did not correct a spreadsheet. The analyst attempted to murder his identity. When your identity is threatened, your survival brain cannot differentiate between a critique of your work and a blade at your throat. The ego is a parasite that thrives entirely on external validation and the preservation of certainty. Because it is an artificial construct, it lives in a state of perpetual, underlying terror. It recognizes that if the narrative dissolves, it ceases to exist. The human soul desires expansion, creation, and the exploration of uncharted territory. The ego, conversely, demands safety, predictability, and the preservation of status. The soul wants to build a new empire. The ego wants to ensure nobody laughs at its current small castle. You must decide which master you serve. Do you want to preserve a fiction, or do you want to conquer your reality? But something even more dangerous happens when we try to break free. Why does the ego resist transformation with such astonishing ferocity? Why does the prospect of changing your life feel less like an exciting adventure and more like stepping onto a gallows? To your evolutionary biology, the death of your current identity is interpreted as literal, physical death. Your brain evolved over millions of years in tribal environments where conformity equaled survival. If you strayed from your defined role within the tribe, or if you were cast out into the wilderness, you died. Your identity was your life insurance policy. To your amygdala, the ancient, primitive fear center of your brain, retaining a familiar, miserable identity is infinitely safer than adopting an unfamiliar, successful one. The amygdala processes an identity shift, exactly how it processes a predator in the bushes. When you decide to quit your stable corporate job to launch an enterprise, or when you resolve to walk away from a toxic, codependent relationship, your internal alarms scream at maximum volume. The mind whispers, "Do not take another step. We do not know who we are on the other side of this door. It is better to remain safely miserable in the hell we know than to risk walking into an unknown heaven." This evolutionary hardwiring explains the profound pathology of clinical depression and chronic self-sabotage. To a person trapped in a multi-year cycle of depression, that state of melancholy, though painful, has become an entirely predictable home. They know the script. They know how to behave. They know what to expect from the world, and they know how the world expects them to react. Happiness, vitality, and high achievement are terrifying because they represent an unmapped terrain. They demand a completely different set of behaviors, a new posture, and a standard of personal responsibility that the old identity cannot support. This is precisely why individuals self-sabotage the exact moment they begin to experience massive success. Imagine an artist who suddenly receives a major gallery breakthrough or a massive influx of wealth. Right on the precipice of their highest achievement, they suddenly miss critical deadlines, start fights with key patrons, or spiral into substance abuse. The average observer calls it tragic. The psychological narrator recognizes it for what it truly is: the ego deliberately crashing the plane because it was terrified of how high it was flying. The ego would rather rule over a familiar, smoldering ruin than be a novice in a magnificent, unfamiliar palace. To kill the ego, you must become entirely willing to step out of the burning aircraft without a traditional parachute, trusting your capacity to build wings on the long descent. Let us look to the elite warriors of the past to understand how this psychological self-termination is executed at the highest level. In feudal Japan, the samurai operated under a strict ethical and philosophical code known as Bushido. While modern culture romanticizes their mastery of the katana, their ultimate weapon was not forged of steel. It was an absolute, unshakable philosophy regarding their own death. In the classic text Hagakure, written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo, there is a definitive phrase that contains the entire secret to their power: "The way of the samurai is found in death." This did not mean the samurai sought reckless, suicidal ends in combat. It meant they practiced a highly disciplined method of daily psychological execution. Every morning, before leaving their estate, a samurai would sit in deep meditation and vividly imagine their own demise. They would visualize being cut down by an arrow, pierced by a spear, swept away by a sudden wave, or consumed by a raging fire. They would deliberately feel the cold chill of their final breath. They did this until the fear of dying was entirely exhausted. By the time the samurai walked onto the battlefield, they considered themselves already dead. They had already surrendered their future, their comfort, and their survival. This psychological suicide granted them an immediate, terrifying advantage over their adversaries. A warrior who is desperately trying to stay alive is hesitant, defensive, and easily manipulated by fear. He calculates. He flinches, but a warrior who is already dead has absolutely nothing left to lose. He is entirely unburdened by ego, completely free of hesitation, and intensely present in the current moment. This state of absolute, unmediated action was referred to as sutanati, the total throwing away of one's life, which allowed them to enter mushin, the state of no mind. When the internal narrator is executed, there is no voice left to ask, "What if I fail? What if I look foolish? What if I lose my status?" There is only the absolute, pure execution of the task. You have likely experienced fleeting glimpses of this state in your own life. Think of a time when you were completely immersed in a highly intense sport, an absorbing creative project, or an emergency situation that demanded your immediate action. In those moments, did you think about your bank account? Did you worry about your childhood traumas? Did you care about your social media reputation? No. The self-conscious narrator completely vanished from your mind. The ego left the building, and as a result, you performed with a level of fluid, effortless mastery that felt almost supernatural. You were not doing the action. The action was flowing entirely through you. Our objective is not to wait for emergencies to trigger this state. Our objective is to systematically eliminate the internal referee entirely, so you can inhabit this freedom permanently. To dismantle the narrative of the ego, we must look at how it maintains its power over your daily life. The ego survives entirely on the continuous repetition of its own mythology. It tracks your history, curates your worst failures, and builds a rigid cage out of your past choices. It forces you to comply with a script you wrote when you were far less intelligent than you are today. To break this cycle, you must initiate an immediate, cold-blooded identity audit. Take a clean piece of paper, write down every single definitive statement you routinely make about your own character, your capabilities, and your limitations. Write down things like, "I am terrible at public speaking. I am an introvert who hates crowds. I cannot stick to a diet. I always get nervous when negotiating money." Look at that list with absolute, clinical detachment. Realize, with absolute clarity, that not a single item on that paper is a biological reality written into your DNA. You did not inherit a gene for being bad at public speaking. You do not possess a chromosome that prevents you from adhering to a nutritional regimen. These statements are merely ancient psychological truces you signed with your fear years ago to avoid discomfort. They are outdated contracts. To kill the ego, you must burn these contracts to ashes. The first step in this execution is the immediate enforcement of the narrative starvation rule. For the next 7 days, you are entirely forbidden from speaking about your past struggles, your personal traumas, or your defined limitations to anyone. If someone asks how you are doing, you do not pull out your routine catalog of complaints, stresses, or historical justifications. You do not say, "Well, things are tough as usual." You say, "I am entirely focused on what is ahead." When you continuously repeat the story of your trauma, you are not healing it. You are actively pouring fresh concrete around the foundations of the ego that keeps you trapped. The character survives entirely on the attention you feed it. If you starve the story of your past, the character will naturally begin to waste away. The second tool of execution is the deliberate practice of systematic humiliation. The ego is completely obsessed with maintaining its dignity, its poise, and its illusion of superior status. Therefore, you must deliberately force it into situations where it is stripped of its armor. Consider the Roman Stoic philosopher Cato the Younger. Cato was a man of immense wealth, high political status, and nobility. Yet, he would routinely walk through the crowded streets of Rome entirely barefoot, wearing clothes that were deliberately mismatched, cheap, and ridiculous. The citizens of Rome would point at him, laugh, and openly mock him in the markets. Why did one of the most powerful politicians in the world do this? He was not insane. He was conducting a highly sophisticated psychological exercise. He was deliberately training his mind to completely ignore the opinions, laughter, and superficial judgments of other human beings. He was forcing his ego to endure the flames of public ridicule, so it would realize that public shame has no actual power to harm a man of true character. You must design your own modern variations of this exercise. Go to a highly crowded public space, stand completely still, and look upward at an empty patch of sky for 60 seconds without moving, allowing everyone around you to wonder what you are doing. Go to a local establishment and politely ask for a 10% discount on a standard item with absolute seriousness, forcing yourself to sit in the intense, awkward friction of the request. Put yourself in a room where you are completely outclassed, out-educated, and out-skilled, and force your ego to sit in the quiet, agonizing position of being the least important person in the room. When you step directly into these moments of voluntary exposure, you will feel an intense, burning sensation in your chest. That heat is not your demise. That heat is the calcified skin of your ego cracking, peeling, and burning away. You are proving to your nervous system that you can survive the worst weapon. The social world has to offer the judgment of others and remain completely unbroken. When you successfully execute the old identity, you will not experience an immediate, triumphant burst of euphoria. You will not hear angels sing, nor will you feel an instant rush of intoxicating motivation. Instead, you will enter a highly disorienting, quiet phase known across spiritual and psychological traditions as the dark night of the soul, or what Zen practitioners refer to as the profound void. You have burned down the old house of your identity, but you have not yet constructed the new mansion. You are standing in the cold, silent ash of who you used to be. You will look in the mirror and genuinely feel like you do not know the person looking back at you. Your old friends may feel distant or foreign. Your old habits will lose their flavor, yet your new life has not fully manifested. You are completely homeless in the landscape of your own mind. This void is the exact point where 95% of people fail their transformation. The emptiness is so profoundly uncomfortable, so heavy, and so terrifying that their immediate instinct is to seek any form of cheap psychological shelter. They panic. They run straight back to their old toxic relationships, their old comforting vices, their old dead-end careers, or their old familiar anxieties, just to feel something they recognize. They rebuild the old cage because the open sky of freedom feels too vast and terrifying. Do not run from the void. Do not try to fill the emptiness with cheap dopamine, mindless entertainment, or hasty commitments. Sit in the silence. The void is not a barren desert. It is the highly fertile, cleared soil of your subconscious mind. If you fill it prematurely with the old clutter, nothing new can ever take root. The emptiness is the ultimate proof that you are finally free. For the first time in your adult life, you are a completely blank canvas. You are no longer a collection of past traumas and societal conditioning. You are a sovereign entity possessing the absolute freedom to choose exactly what happens next. Now that the old identity has been systematically executed, and you have survived the stillness of the void, you must step into the role of the master architect. We do not operate in the world without an ego. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of Eastern philosophy. To interact with reality, to build businesses, to lead families, and to project power, you require a functional interface. You must wear a suit to step into the boardroom, but the critical difference between the master and the slave is this: the slave believes the suit is his actual skin. The master recognizes the suit is merely a strategic uniform. You are now going to design a strategic ego by deliberate intention. We are going to construct a powerful, high-performance avatar designed specifically to execute your highest vision, completely unburdened by the accidents of your childhood trauma or geographic conditioning. To do this with absolute precision, you must map out your personal transformation across a definitive, uncompromising timeline. This is not a vague manifesto of positive thinking. This is a rigorous 5-year psychological blueprint. In the first 30 days of this blueprint, your sole objective is the complete enforcement of behavioral discipline over internal narrative. You will completely cease waiting for your mind to feel motivated, confident, or ready before you execute an action. If your schedule dictates that you wake up at 4:30 a.m. to train, you do not engage in a mental dialogue with the lingering remnants of your old, comfort-seeking self. You treat your old self like a fading ghost whose voice carries no authority. You move the physical body through space with clinical, absolute coldness. You are training the subconscious mind to understand an entirely new law: behavior dictates identity. Identity no longer dictates behavior. By day 90, the continuous practice of narrative starvation and voluntary friction will begin to fundamentally rewire your neural pathways. You will notice a profound reduction in your baseline social anxiety. When someone critiques your work, challenges your authority, or attempts to provoke you, you will observe their actions with a calm, detached curiosity rather than a reactive surge of anger. The old reactive triggers are still present in the environment, but the explosive charge they used to ignite has been permanently removed. You are stepping fully into the identity of the detached observer. By day 180, you enter the phase of strategic architecture. This is where you consciously deploy what psychologists call strategic alter egos. You look at the massive goals you have set for your wealth, your physical sovereignty, and your leadership, and you design the specific character capable of achieving them. Consider the elite examples of modern culture. When Beyoncé Knowles encountered profound stage fright and deep conservative conditioning that prevented her from performing with absolute, uninhibited power on stage, she did not try to fix herself. She created an alter ego named Sasha, a fiercely confident, aggressive, and uninhibited persona that she would actively step into the moment she crossed the threshold of the stage. When David Goggins was a 300-pound, depressed pest control technician running from his past, he realized that David Goggins could never survive the rigors of Navy SEAL training. He had to create Goggins, an uncompromising, unbreakable, cold-blooded machine designed explicitly to endure hell. You must define the exact attributes of your new strategic avatar. How does this person speak? How do they walk into a room? How do they handle extreme financial pressure? You do not fake it. You channel it. You wear the character like a tailored armor until the distinction between the character and your core self completely dissolves. By the end of year 1, your external reality will begin to violently realign itself to match your internal architecture. The old relationships that were built on the shared foundation of your past weaknesses will have naturally withered away, replaced by high-value alliances with individuals who only know your strength. Your financial trajectory, your physical vitality, and your daily output will reflect the cold efficiency of a mind that has eliminated its internal saboteur. By year 5, the transformation is absolute. You look back at the person you are today, the person listening to these exact words, with a sense of distant, historical bewilderment. You will remember their struggles, their fears, and their anxieties the same way a billionaire remembers the schoolyard worries of a 7-year-old child. You have not just upgraded your life, you have successfully engineered a completely new lineage. If you choose to ignore this law, if you close this audio and return immediately to the comfortable, warm embrace of your current narrative, you must be entirely prepared to look the emotional consequences directly in the eye. The ego will whisper that you are safe, but it is lying. If you refuse to execute your old identity today, you are actively choosing a slow, agonizing psychological death that will play out over the next several decades. You will continue to watch your highest potential slip through your fingers year after year, blocked by a ghost you refuse to bury. You will sit in rooms with people who are far less naturally talented than you, watching them build empires, command respect, and live with absolute freedom, while you remain trapped in the small, rigid cage of your self-imposed limitations. Your baseline anxiety will slowly curdle into a deep, permanent resentment, a bitter anger directed at the world, at your circumstances, and ultimately, at the reflection in the mirror. You will become the bitter critic who watches from the sidelines, intellectualizing your cowardice as wisdom, mocking those who dare to step into the arena, because their scars remind you of the battles you were too terrified to fight. And the ultimate tragedy is that on the final day of your life, when your physical body is drawing its last shallow breaths, the universe will grant you a terrifyingly clear vision of the person you could have become. You will see the master of your own dominion, the architect of wealth, the leader of men, and the conqueror of fear. You will see that magnificent entity standing right next to your bed, looking down at you with a cold, silent disappointment, and you will realize, in your final seconds of consciousness, that the only person who kept that master a prisoner was the coward in the mirror you were too afraid to kill. The time for hesitation is permanently over. The rock is directly in front of your face. Look at your current identity. Look at your anxieties, your historical excuses, your precious small dramas, and your calcified fears. Realize that they are not your protectors. They are your executioners. Step up to the stone. Press your snout against the jagged edge. Press it until it hurts. Scrape away the tatted, dead skin of the person you have outgrown. Let the blood run. Let the illusions shatter. Let the old world burn to absolute ash in the fire of your current resolve. Do not flinch from the rawness of the void. Inhabit the stillness. Stand up. Roll your shoulders back. Plant your feet into the earth, and look out over the horizon of your life with the cold, unshakable clarity of a sovereign ruler. You are no longer the victim of your history. You are the absolute, undisputed architect of your destiny. The past is dead. The ghost is buried. Your true dominion begins right now.